Wonderful Saturday morning in New York City, Upper West Side here. I mentioned yesterday in my video that the fail culture in my home country in Germany is problematic. Well, that's politely stated. Actually, it's disastrous. There is no fail culture. People are judged when they fail. People are banned when they fail. So that really has consequences. Personal consequences, emotional consequences, and practical consequences in their further careers, their living environment, their relationships. Why am I getting back to that point again? It should be completely different. Tony always explained it this way. How many tries are you going to give your child in order for it to learn to walk? Well, the usual response would be, well, as many as it takes. And Tony would then say, well, interesting concept, isn't it? He uses that metaphor to teach people that when you do something the first time and it doesn't work out, that's normal. You do it a second time and it still doesn't work out, it's normal. We have different ways to learn. And I don't want to be the teacher and I don't want to be the one knowing better than you here. But there's another thing I learned by the trainers I had here in the US. And so there are 4 stages of developing competence. Well, and the first stage is you're incompetent and you don't know. So unknown incompetence. Not being aware, you don't know. Well, then you fall down. Well, suddenly you are aware, right? So that's competence that you know about, or incompetence that you know about, sorry. Well, the third stage then coming out is that you purposely do something different. And so you're building up competence. Well, while you do that, you practice. Right? It's like shifting gears in a car. Well, first time it kind of sounds funny. Well, and then it gets better and better and better, right? And well, in the end, 4th stage, you are competent and you don't even think about it. That's like shifting gears. You don't think about how you get from 1st into 4th gear. Same with kids. They try to walk. They fall down, so they understand, oh, it doesn't work that way, right? And then they purposely do something different. And it gets better and better and better through practice. So those are the metaphors I learned, and I shared them with you because so you might have a visualization of how that can be developed. Why isn't that applied in my home country in the business environment? Isn't that comparable to I would judge a child for not being able to walk like right away, and then I would even punish a child for not being able to do that, and no German would think these days, well, that's the proper way to handle it. But that's how we handle entrepreneurs in my home country when they fail in their first attempts or even later, you know, in different stages. Isn't it more important to ask the question, well, what can we learn from it? How can we improve? I flew to the States many times. I attended seminars. I consumed audio programs for years, hours and hundreds of hours of audio programs. I read many, many books. And to develop that mindset, that failure is something that happens. It's part of developing competence. And some failure you cause by what you do yourself. Yeah? Sometimes I've been an idiot. I've done things that I should have known better. Well, but sometimes there's failure because of influence from outside, out of your control. Same with kids, right? They get pushed, they slip. It's nothing to do with their competence. That can happen. Does that mean they can never walk? No, of course not. Right. So, I would consider that I am in a situation as a businessman, as an entrepreneur. Well, I probably made mistakes. Quite a few probably. But still, it was external influence that caused the crisis. And so does that mean I can't? I don't believe so. Why am I telling you all this morning? Because I had a very good night last night. I coincidentally, again, at a Marriott location, these stories, to keep my 5-star mentality up and awake. At a Marriott location, autograph collection near Times Square. I sat in the lobby charging my phone, editing some videos because I have Wi-Fi, and, enjoying the atmosphere. I got into a chat with a couple Americans that sat 2 tables next to me. And, well, that chat led into a very nice, lovely conversation. Lovely people, a bit older than me, very experienced. They saw, they've seen the world. And, well, the man I spoke to, he didn't know what I was doing because I didn't mention it first. He's in the coaching business in a way as well. And I mentioned Stephen Covey, Dr. Stephen Covey, and he said, well, I know a family member personally. He's a friend of mine. And so, of course, that was something where we, kept going. And then there are other coincidences. His wife is from Oklahoma. That's the place I lived in the US for 1 year, more than 30 years ago. So you would call it coincidence. Others say, well, that's, when God blinks with an eye, whatever, right? Depending on your concept. But it was a lovely evening. Very, very nice conversation. There's a but. The but is, I even mentioned the story I have at the moment. My crisis. I'm in New York to meet people. I'm working on the restart. So all that was, what you all know so far. What I didn't mention was my hostel stay. So I left the impression I was at a Ritz-Carlton near Central Park. I didn't say I have a room at the Ritz-Carlton, but I left the impression, and I did that on purpose because I didn't want to scare them off. I thought that would be too much. Even though I mentioned that the fail culture in my home country is problematic, I still was too shy to be that honest immediately. And the people I talked to, they probably could have handled, and they probably even appreciated that kind of openness. But that's the thing. I'm still German, right? So I'm not going to use that as an excuse. I'm sharing what happened. This morning I woke up and I regretted what I've done, or what I had done last night. That couple, they were so honest, they were so warm in the communication, they were so open. So I thought, well, I have to correct that. I have to adjust that. So I sent a message this morning. We connected online, and I sent a message And I explained. And I hope it's going to be appreciated. Really, I hope it's going to be appreciated. Lovely people. And I'm sharing this with you because that's going to be part of my mission, if you want to speak. So it's going to be part of what I really want to be happening as change. It can't be that I have to be ashamed that I'm staying at a 6-bed dorm in a hostel, Upper West Side here in New York, because I still paid for it. I chose to stay there. I made the effort to come here. Well, that's the way it works at the moment. But that doesn't say anything about me as a person. It doesn't say anything about my character. And what I started in this video, it doesn't say anything about my competence. In Germany, we tend to judge people by the attributes of success. So my cars, my homes, my watches, my office size, all those things, to leave the impression on others, well, I made it. That's success. Well, I wrote a book 18 years ago, and I wrote a chapter on success, and it's kind of called, finish those prejudices, right? What is success? I don't even like the word. But if we can agree that success is achievement of something that you wanted, that one wants in his life, or achieving a result that was once a goal, then it's okay. Okay, we can use the word, I agree to use the word success, right? But are the attributes the proof of success? Or are those just external insignia for power to impress on others? See what I done. How important is that? In a way, it's important, of course. We are all extrovert on different levels, and we like the feedback and the confirmation, and we can benefit from it emotionally, and it's okay, yes, and it's okay to do that. But personally, on a very personal level, the importance of success is that I know what I achieved, that I know what I know, that I know how competent I am, even if I had none of those insignias that show others my competence. Give you a last example. I studied at the university twice. First time I studied law in Germany, in my hometown Osnabrück back then. To finance that study, I set up a company, became self-employed, and at the time I reached the possible exam to start getting the certificates for becoming a lawyer or something comparable, or a judge or whatever. At that time I reached that point where I could have gotten into exam preparation. I broke up. I had 34 employees that time. I had a nice car, I had a penthouse, built-in sauna, roof terrace, and I thought, I don't need that. I studied again a few years later, psychology, same university, same town, still self-employed, still many employees, still had income, everything was fine. I studied for a few years and I didn't get a diploma, which led to the conclusion for some people, you don't have an education really, you don't have any certificates. I've read thousands of books in my life, literally thousands of books. I read about a book a week for many, many years. And I had a library. In my last apartment, not the last one, but the one with the concierge service, the nice apartment with my last wife, I set up a library, displaying some of those thousands of books. But it was a confirmation for myself. You know, I looked at these bookshelves and thought, well, yeah, I know things, you know, I've read all these, and yeah. And of course, the visual helps, and there's a haptic experience with books. Sometimes I used to smell books. Don't ask me why. I love books. These days I don't have them anymore. I just have art books, you know, with pictures mainly, or they're signed, and I read digitally or audio. But what was a library? Insignia, isn't it? I wanted to display, I know, because I don't have a college certificate. I don't have a proper university education. I even thought I need to get a doctor title, a PhD, to prove how much I know. I admire if people have that. I think it's great. Education is great. But how important is insignia? These days I don't think it's that important anymore. And it doesn't say anything about one's competence. So that's my strong belief. And when I say I'm going to make this a mission, what is the mission? The fail culture in my home country has to change. The current fail culture hurts people. It leads to people giving up. I've worked in suicide prevention for many years. I've worked in the field of, people, the awareness for depression and things like that. I know how far it can hurt, take one person when they really give up. And I don't want that. You don't want that. Nobody would want that. And I said that in my TEDx talk in the Netherlands years ago.
Today is World Suicide Prevention Day. According to World Health Organization, we have an average of about 3,000 suicides per day. Every day. Adding up to about 1 million every year. That's not counting the 10 to 20 times as many attempts. You may have heard in the past about some recent examples that came across in the media. You may have heard about the German entrepreneur, the 5th richest man in the country, a billionaire who threw himself in front of a train at age 70.
It could be someone from your neighborhood, could be someone from my neighborhood. So it could be one of our friends. And I wouldn't want that. So I'm going to, whatever I do, business-wise, and however I continue my career, and whatever my second half would give me as an opportunity to do, I will make it my mission to help improve and change that fail culture in my home country, especially for entrepreneurs and next generation. I think that's critically important, and I think that will really do something for people. And as I had these very strong, in parts extreme experiences the last couple of years, personally, financially, business-wise, that's something I can show. That's something I can use as an example to teach, to educate, to develop, to help by sharing. So this is why I do this video today. I just want to share. As I mentioned yesterday, I don't want to impress you. I don't want to tell stories because of the story, right? But And that's but on purpose. Again, I like to leave the impression that it is important. Stories help create pictures in your mind. They help create visualizations, what happens. And they're strong metaphors. And metaphors help us learn, help us understand, help us remember. So I'm sharing my stories, I'm sharing my experiences, and this is current, this is like kind of life. I had that conversation yesterday, and one could have said, well, that was by coincidence. But it matches what's happening now. So is it coincidence? It matches what's happening now, and maybe it helps you, one of you. It helps me. It did help me. That meeting, that chat, that gathering last night was an inspiration for me. And I want to share that as well. As I mentioned yesterday, look at this light. That's the energy I'm seeking. It's still about getting in state and coming to a conclusion, make a decision in peak state. What's next? What's my turnaround going to be? What do I choose to do from now on? I will be flying back tomorrow afternoon. I will arrive in Germany on Monday. And then that's new. That's the second half. And I'm going to decide what I will do then here. Until tomorrow. It's going to be either this afternoon or tomorrow morning. I will make that decision. I'm determined. And I'm in state. And you make sure, enjoy the day.